Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto was sent to the world of Date alive and got married to Tohka, Kurumi, and Origami? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Spatial displacement. The mission was supposed to be simple. Naruto Uzumaki leapt between massive tree branches, a blur of orange and black against the forest canopy. His breath came in measured bursts, controlled despite the speed of his movement. Intel had reported unusual chakra disturbances at the border between the Land of Fire and the uncharted territories to the east, exactly the kind of mission the 7th Hokage would normally delegate. But something about these energy readings had caught his attention. "You're sure this is the right direction?" Naruto called over his shoulder. Shikamaru Nara, keeping pace several feet behind, rolled his eyes. For the third time, yes. The sensors detected the anomaly approximately 2 kilometers ahead. "I'm just making sure." Naruto replied with a grin that hadn't changed much since his genin days, despite the maturity that now tempered his features. At 23, he'd grown into his role as Konoha's hero, though he still maintained that spark of unpredictability that had defined him since childhood. The forest thinned suddenly, giving way to a circular clearing that didn't look natural. Trees at the perimeter bent outward, as if some force had pushed them from the center. The ground itself appeared scorched in a perfect circle. "This is it," Shikamaru muttered, dropping to the ground alongside Naruto. Whatever happened here, it wasn't subtle. Naruto approached the center of the clearing cautiously. The air felt wrong, thinner somehow, with an electric quality that made the fine hairs on his arms stand on end. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his senses. "There's chakra here, but it's not like anything I've felt before." His brow furrowed in concentration. "It's like it's folding in on itself, creating some kind of..." The ground beneath them shuddered. "Naruto!" Shikamaru shouted in warning. Too late. The air in the center of the clearing rippled, distorting like the surface of water disturbed by a stone. Purple light erupted from the distortion, expanding outward in concentric rings. Naruto raised his arms instinctively, golden chakra flaring around him as he activated Kurama's power. "Stay back," he ordered, stepping forward rather than retreating. "What are you doing?" Shikamaru called, already forming hand signs for his shadow possession jutsu. "If this thing is expanding, someone needs to contain it," Naruto replied, creating 4 shadow clones without seals. They spread out around the perimeter of the growing distortion, each extending hands glowing with vibrant chakra. The air cracked, clad with energy as the strange purple light intensified, spinning faster until it formed a vortex. Naruto felt himself being pulled toward it, his feet sliding across the ground despite his chakra-enhanced resistance. "It's some kind of space-time ninjutsu," Shikamaru yelled, his shadows stretching toward Naruto but dissipating as they touched the edge of the vortex. "Fall back. We need to regroup." Naruto gritted his teeth, golden chains of chakra erupting from his back, a technique he'd refined from his mother's Kekkei Genkai. The chains drove into the earth, anchoring him as he fought against the pull. "I can contain it," he insisted, drawing on more of Kurama's chakra until his form was bathed in golden light. Inside his mindscape, Kurama stirred uneasily. "Kid, this energy, it's not from our world. It's tearing at the fabric between dimensions. Then we seal it," Naruto replied internally, his hands moving through a complex series of seals. "That's not how interdimensional rifts work," Kurama growled. "You can't just..." The vortex pulsed, sending out a shockwave that shattered Naruto's clones and snapped his chakra chains like brittle twigs. He had just enough to meet Shikamaru's horrified gaze before the purple light engulfed him completely. Pain lanced through every cell in his body, as if he were being simultaneously compressed and stretched. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think beyond the overwhelming sensation of being unmade and remade with each passing second. "Naruto, my chakra, it's separating from yours." Kurama's voice faded in and out of his consciousness. "The dimensional boundaries, they're filtering." Then darkness, blessed and absolute. The first sensation Naruto registered was falling. His eyes snapped open to a twilight. Sky streaked with unnatural purple light. Wind rushed past him as the ground, a sprawling urban landscape unlike anything in the 5 great nations, raced up to meet him. Training kicked in before conscious thought. He twisted midair, chakra flowing to his feet and hands. His descent slowed but didn't stop entirely. Something was interfering with his chakra control, making it sluggish and unpredictable. Kurama, he called mentally, reaching for the familiar presence of the 9 tails. Silence answered him, though he could still feel Kurama's chakra, muted and distant, like an echo. The ground approached rapidly. Naruto abandoned finesse for raw power, pushing chakra through his system in a desperate burst. He hit the pavement harder than intended, the impact cracking concrete and sending shockwaves up his legs. He rolled with the momentum, dispersing the force across his body before coming to a crouch. Pain flared through his right ankle, sprained, not broken, but that was the least of his concerns. Sirens wailed in the distance. Strange metal vehicles with flashing lights raced through streets lined with buildings taller than Konoha's Hokage Tower. The architecture was nothing like he'd ever seen. All glass and steel and glowing signs in a language that somehow translated in his mind even as he recognized it wasn't his own. What the hell, he muttered, rising to his feet and wincing at the pain in his ankle. Where am I? The sky above him continued to swirl with unnatural energy, the purple light intensifying. The air pressure dropped suddenly, making his ears pop. People on the streets below were running in panic, some pointing up at the vortex, others seeking shelter in the strange buildings. Naruto had just enough time to register that he was witnessing something catastrophic when a second shockwave hit. This one powerful enough to shatter windows in nearby buildings. He crouched low, shielding his head as glass rained down around him. When he looked up again, he saw something, or someone, emerging from the center of the vortex. A girl with long, dark purple hair and striking violet eyes descended slowly through the air. She wore an elaborate outfit that resembled armor more than clothing, with a color scheme matching her hair and eyes. Most notably, she carried a massive sword that appeared to be composed of the same energy as the vortex itself. Their eyes met across the distance. Confusion mirrored in both gazes. The moment shattered as projectiles streaked through the air, aimed at the girl. Naruto's enhanced senses tracked their origin to several armored figures hovering in the air using some kind of mechanical apparatus. Target acquired, a cool female voice announced through what appeared to be a communication device. Princess confirmed. All units, engage with caution. The armored figures, women, Naruto realized, in some kind of powered suits, opened fire again. The purple-haired girl reacted with surprising speed, swinging her massive sword to deflect the incoming projectiles. Naruto's instincts screamed at him to intervene, but he held back, assessing the situation. He had no idea who these people were or what conflict he'd landed in the middle of. The girl didn't appear to be attacking anyone, merely defending herself. The armored women, on the other hand, were firing indiscriminately, with seemingly little concern for collateral damage. His decision made itself when one of the armored women redirected her fire toward him. Second spatial reading confirmed. The same cool voice called out. Unknown entity at 3 o'clock. Possibly another spirit manifestation. Wait, I'm not. Naruto began, but was cut short as he had to dodge a barrage of energy blasts. He leapt sideways, his injured ankle protesting the sudden movement. One blast caught the edge of his jacket, scorching the material but missing flesh. Origami, focus on the princess, another voice ordered. Ryuko's squad will handle the unknown. Understood, replied the first voice, Origami. Naruto caught a glimpse of white hair and cold blue eyes as one of the armored women peeled away from the main group, continuing her assault on the purple-haired girl while others turned toward him. Look, I don't want to fight. Naruto called out, raising his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of surrender. There's been some kind of mistake. His only answer came in the form of more energy blasts. Naruto exhaled in frustration, then blurred into motion. He might be in a strange place with his chakra behaving oddly, but he was still a shinobi of the hidden leaf. He weaved between the attacks with practiced ease, closing the distance to the nearest attacker. He deliberately pulled his punch, striking the mechanical wings of her suit rather than the woman herself. The apparatus sputtered, losing altitude before emergency systems seemed to kick in, stabilizing her flight. He's fast, someone shouted. Switch to wide dispersal. The next volley came as a spread pattern. Impossible to dodge completely. Naruto formed a hand sign, concentrating through the strange resistance he felt in his chakra network. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 5 copies of himself materialized, each moving in a different direction to confuse his attackers. The clones weren't as solid as they should have been, another effect of whatever was happening to his chakra, but they served their purpose. Drawing fire away from his actual position. Using the distraction, Naruto sprinted toward a nearby building, running vertically up its glass facade. His chakra control slipped halfway up, forcing him to dig his kunai into the surface to prevent a fall. He hauled himself onto a maintenance platform, taking a moment to catch his breath and reassess. The battle between the pure, PLE-haired girl and the white-haired attacker, Origami, had intensified. Despite being outnumbered, the girl fought with incredible power, her massive sword cutting through the air with devastating force. What struck Naruto most was her expression, not anger or hatred, but confusion and fear, as if she didn't understand why she was being attacked. "She's just defending herself," he murmured, watching as she deflected another barrage. "Just like me." Decision made, Naruto formed another shadow clone. "Find out what's going on," he instructed it. "I'll help her." The clone nodded and hanged into a nondescript civilian before leaping away. Naruto turned his attention back to the battle, gauging distances and angles. His chakra might be behaving strangely, but years of training weren't so easily negated. He launched himself from the platform, timing his jump to intercept the white-haired attacker, Origami, just as she lined up another shot at the purple-haired girl. He twisted midair, bringing his foot down in a perfectly executed axe kick that struck her mechanical wings rather than her body. The impact sent her spiraling downward, though she recovered with impressive skill, reorienting herself before she hit the ground. Cold blue eyes locked onto him through her helmet visor. Interference confirmed, she stated flatly. Switching primary target. "I don't want to hurt you," Naruto called down to her. "But I won't let you attack someone who's just defending herself." Her response was another barrage, this one more precisely targeted. Naruto dodged, feeling the heat of energy blasts passing within inches of his body. He was forced to retreat, leaping from building to building as she pursued. "You're good," he admitted, genuinely impressed by her combat abilities. "But you're making a mistake here." "The mistake was yours," she replied, her voice devoid of emotion. "Revealing yourself during an AST operation?" asked. Naruto questioned, ducking under another blast. "Look, I don't know what that is or who you people are. I'm not from around here." "Obviously," she stated, "you're a spirit, an interdimensional being that causes spatial quakes when manifesting in our world." Naruto almost lost his footing at that. "A what?" "No, I'm a shinobi from Konohagakure." His proclamation seemed to give her pause, if only for a moment. Unknown terminology. Possibly a new spirit type. Continuing engagement. She pressed a button on her wrist device, and her weapons systems reconfigured, producing what looked like a laser-guided targeting system. Naruto recognized the increase IN threat level immediately and changed tactics. "Fine, we'll do this the hard way." He formed a familiar hand sign. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. The drain on his chakra was far greater than it should have been, but the technique worked. 20 clones appeared around him, each adopting a different stance. Origami's eyes widened slightly behind her visor, the first real emotion he'd seen from her. Multiple target manifestation, she reported to someone through her communication device. Requesting backup. "Don't need backup for this," Naruto muttered, directing his clones to surround her in a spherical formation. They moved in perfect synchronization, closing the distance from all angles. Origami responded with impressive adaptability, her suit emitting a pulse of energy that dispelled the closest clones. She spun in midair, firing precisely at the remaining ones, but Naruto had already anticipated this. The real attack came from below, where the original Naruto had dropped during the initial confusion. He launched upward, a Rasengan forming in his palm, smaller than usual, but still potent. He aimed for her equipment rather than her body, the swirling chakra sphere colliding with her suit's power pack. The result was immediate. Electrical systems shorted out, and her mechanical wings failed completely. She began to fall, her expression still eerily composed despite the danger. Naruto dispersed his remaining clones and redirected his momentum, catching her before she could hit the ground. They landed roughly, but he absorbed most of the impact, setting her down on her feet. "See, I could have attacked you directly. But I didn't," he said, stepping back with hands raised peacefully. "I just want to talk." Origami reached for a sidearm, but Naruto moved faster, disarming her with a quick, precise strike to her wrist. She responded with a flurry of martial arts techniques, impressive by civilian standards but telegraphed to Naruto's trained eye. He blocked or dodged each attack, gradually increasing the distance between them. "You're good," he acknowledged again. "But I've been fighting since I was a kid. Please, just listen." A massive explosion cut him off. Both Naruto and Origami turned to see the purple-haired girl surrounded by the remaining AST members, her sword glowing with intensifying energy. "Throne!" she cried out, swinging the massive blade in a wide arc. The resulting energy wave demolished half a city block, sending AST members flying in all directions. Buildings crumbled, and debris rained down on the streets below, streets that, Naruto realized with horror, still had civilians trying to evacuate. "No!" he shouted, abandoning his confrontation with Origami and racing toward the disaster zone. He pushed chakra to his legs, ignoring the strang, resistance and the pain that flared through his system as a result. A family cowered beneath a collapsing storefront, the parents shielding their 2 children as concrete chunks fell toward them. Naruto reached them just in time, his back taking the brunt of the impact as he covered them with his body. Pain lanced through him, but he channeled chakra to reinforce his muscles and bones. "Run," he ordered, holding the weight of the debris as the family scrambled to safety. Once they were clear, he rolled out from under the collapse, coughing as dust filled his lungs. All around him, similar scenes were playing out. The battle between the AST and the purple-haired girl had caused massive collateral damage, and civilians were paying the price. Naruto created as many shadow clones as he could manage, sending them to assist with evacuations while he headed toward the center of the conflict. The purple-haired girl now hovered above a crater of her own making, her sword pointed at the remaining AST members who maintained their distance, apparently reassessing their approach. Her expression was troubled, as if she hadn't intended to cause such destruction. "Stop," Naruto called up to her. "People are getting hurt." Her violet eyes found him, widening slightly in recognition. "You, from before. You fight them too." "I'm trying not to fight anyone," Naruto replied, cautiously approaching. "But people are in danger. Innocent people who have nothing to do with whatever this conflict is." She tilted her head, seeming genuinely confused. "Innocent. Danger." She looked around at the destruction, and something like remorse flickered across her features. They attack. I defend." "I understand," Naruto said, his voice softening. "Believe me, I do. But there has to be a better way than this." The girl lowered herself slightly, her curiosity apparently overcoming her caution. "Who are you?" "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I'm not from around here." He managed a smile despite the chaos around them. "What's your name?" She blinked, seeming startled by the question. "Name? Her brow furrowed. "I don't remember." Before Naruto could respond, movement caught his peripheral vision. Origami had recovered and was positioning herself for another attack, this one aimed at both of them. "Watch out," Naruto shouted, leaping toward the purple-haired girl just as Origami fired. The blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him through the air. Pain exploded across his left side, but he managed to right himself before hitting the ground. The purple-haired girl's expression shifted from confusion to anger, her sword glowing brighter as she turned toward Origami. "No, don't," Naruto called out, clutching his injured shoulder. "That's exactly what they want." To his surprise, she hesitated, her gaze shifting between him and Origami. The moment of indecision was broken by the arrival of a new figure, a blue-haired boy approximately Naruto's age, running directly in to the battle zone without any visible weapons or protection. "Are you insane?" Naruto shouted at him. "Get out of here." The boy ignored him, his focus entirely on the purple-haired girl. "Please, stop fighting," he called up to her. "You don't have to do this." Remarkably, the girl's aggressive posture softened at the boy's appearance. Her sword lowered slightly as she regarded him with the same curiosity she'd shown Naruto. Shido. Get back. Origami called out, her normally emotionless voice tinged with genuine concern. It's okay, Origami, the boy, Shido, replied without looking away from the purple-haired girl. I can handle this. Handle. The girl repeated, her grip tightening on her sword. You want to fight too? No, Shido said, raising empty hands. I just want to talk. Like him. He nodded toward Naruto. The girl looked between them, clearly conflicted. The remaining AST members had regrouped and were holding position, awaiting orders but not attacking. The standoff stretched, tension crackling in the air like the prelude to a lightning strike. It was broken by the sudden wail of more sirens and the appearance of additional forces, these wearing different uniforms than the AST, but equally well armed. Naruto assessed the new arrivals, noting their more traditional military bearing. JGSDF units have arrived, Origami reported into her communication device. Orders. Whatever response she received caused her to grimace slightly. Understood. AST withdrawing. She cast one final, unreadable look at Naruto before she and her remaining squad members ascended rapidly, disappearing into the clouds above. The purple-haired girl watched them go, her posture still tense. They leave. Why? Because they're regrouping, Naruto answered grimly. And probably bringing reinforcements. Shido approached them cautiously, his attention divided between Naruto and the girl. We don't have much time, he said quietly. More will come, and they won't all be as restrained as the AST. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that, considering the destruction around them. You call this restrained? Compared to what could happen? Yes, Shido replied, his expression serious. Look, I know you're confused. Both of you. But I can help. And why should we trust you? Naruto asked, though without hostility. Something about this boy seemed genuine, even if his sudden appearance was suspicious. Because unlike them, Shido gestured toward where the AST had disappeared, I'm not trying to kill either of you. The purple-haired girl lowered herself to the ground, her sword still. L manifested but no longer glowing with energy. You, different, she said, studying Shido with open curiosity. Not afraid. I am afraid, Shido admitted with a small smile. Anyone sane would be. But I still want to help. Naruto's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of approaching vehicles. Whatever you're planning, make it fast. We've got company. Shido nodded, turning to the purple-haired girl. Will you come with me? Somewhere safe, where we can talk without fighting. She hesitated, looking to Naruto as if seeking his opinion. The gesture surprised him. Why would this powerful being, whoever she was, value his input after just meeting him? I think we should hear him out, Naruto said carefully. My instincts tell me he's being honest. Besides, I could use some answers myself. The girl considered this, then nodded slowly. Okay, we go. And him? Shido asked, glancing at Naruto. He comes too, she said with unexpected firmness. He helped. Did not attack like others. Shish. Ito looked like he wanted to object but thought better of it. All right, but we need to move quickly. This way. He led them down a side street, away from the approaching military forces. Naruto created 2 more shadow clones, sending them in opposite directions to create distractions. The effort left him momentarily lightheaded, whatever was affecting his chakra seemed to be getting worse. You're injured, Shido noted, eyeing Naruto's scorched shoulder and the way he favored his right ankle. I've had worse, Naruto replied automatically. It was true, compared to some of the wounds he'd sustained. Ned in battles with Akatsuki or during the Fourth Shinobi War, these were minor inconveniences. Still, the persistent wrongness he felt in his chakra network concerned him more than any physical injury. They ducked through a series of alleys, eventually emerging near what appeared to be a commercial district. Remarkably, this area showed no signs of battle damage, and people walked about as if nothing unusual had happened. The spatial quake shelters in this sector must have worked properly, Shido explained, noticing Naruto's confusion. People are only just getting the all-clear to come out. Spatial quake shelters, Naruto questioned. I'll explain later, Shido promised, guiding them toward a nondescript building. First, we need to get you both somewhere secure before Ratatosker decides what to do with them. A new voice interrupted. A petite girl with red twintails stood before them, arms crossed and a critical expression on her face. Despite her small stature, she radiated authority. Behind her, two women in what looked like military uniforms stood at attention. Kotori, Shido sighed. I was just bringing them in. Bringing them in, she repeated incredulously. Without authorization. After that disaster we just witnessed. Her gaze shifted to Naruto and the purple-haired girl. One spirit we expected. Two, with one displaying abilities we've never seen before. That's an entirely different situation. There's been a misunderstanding, Naruto began, only to be cut off by the girl's raised hand. Save it for the debriefing, she said crisply. You've caused enough damage for one day. Not fair. The purple-haired girl protested, her sword materializing again in response to the perceived threat. They attacked first. Whoa, easy. Naruto stepped between them, wincing as the movement jarred his injured shoulder. Look, we're all stressed and confused. But more fighting won't solve anything. To his relief, the purple-haired girl lowered her weapon slightly, though it remained manifested. Kotori observed the interaction with sharp eyes. Interesting, she murmured. She responds to you. Because he helped, the girl stated simply. No one else helped, only attacked. Kotori's expression softened marginally. I see, she sighed, seeming to come to a decision. Fine, both of you come with us. We have a secure location where we can talk properly. And why should we trust you? Naruto echoed his earlier question to Shido. Because if I wanted you captured or killed, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd have let the AST and the JGSDF handle it. Kotori's blunt response was oddly reassuring in its honesty. Besides, I think you'll find we have mutual interests. Naruto exchanged glances with the purple-haired girl, seeing his own wariness reflected in her violet eyes. But he also saw weariness and confusion, emotions he understood all too well at the moment. All right, he decided, we'll go with you, but at the first sign of a trap. He left the thread unfinished. But Kotori seemed to understand. She nodded curtly. Fair enough. Follow me, and try not to draw attention to yourselves. The purple-haired girl finally dismissed her sword, the weapon dissolving into particles of light. Without it, she looked almost ordinary, if one ignored her elaborate outfit. Naruto realized his own appearance, orange and black jacket burned and torn. Headband with the leaf symbol, probably stood out just as much. Here, Shido said, removing his school jacket and offering it to the girl. This might help you blend in a little better. She accepted it hesitantly, draping it over her shoulders. The gesture reminded Naruto of something he might do, a simple act of kindness in a chaotic situation. Let's move, Kotori ordered, already walking toward a waiting vehicle that resembled the strange metal contraptions Naruto had seen earlier, only larger. They followed, Naruto keeping pace beside the purple-haired girl. You okay? He asked quietly. She glanced at him, surprise evident in her expression. You ask if I am okay? Yeah, this is all pretty overwhelming, isn't it? She considered this, then nodded slowly. Yes, overwhelming. Her brow furrowed. You are also a spirit, like me. I don't know what a spirit is, Naruto admitted. But I don't think I'm one. I'm a shinobi, a ninja. I'm from a different world, I think. Somehow I got pulled here during a mission. Different world, she repeated, as if testing the concept. I don't remember where I am from, who I am. Frustration flickered across her features. Only fighting, being attacked. Naruto felt a surge of sympathy. Well, I remember who I am, but I'm just as lost as you are right now. Maybe we can figure things out together. She looked at him with cautious hope. Together, sure. He offered his hand. Friends. She stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment before hesitantly placing her own in it. Friends, she agreed, as if discovering a new word. I like that. Their moment was interrupted as they reached the vehicle. In, Kotori directed, holding open a door. The interior was surprisingly spacious, with seats facing each other across a central aisle. Shido and Kotori sat on one side, while Naruto and the purple-haired girl took the other. The two uniformed women entered last, sitting near the front where one began operating what appeared to be controls. The vehicle hummed to life, pulling away from the curb with startling smoothness. Through the windows, Naruto could see the city passing by, a marvel of engineering unlike anything in the 5 great nations. Towering buildings of glass and steel, Strange vehicles moving in organized patterns, people dressed in unfamiliar clothing going about their business despite the recent chaos. What is this place? He asked, unable to contain his curiosity any longer. Tengu City, Shido answered. Japan, Earth. He studied Naruto with renewed interest. You really aren't from here, are you? No, Naruto confirmed. My home is Kanahagakure, the village hidden in the leaves. It's nothing like this. Fascinating, Kotori murmured, producing a small device that she spoke into. Rain, we're bringing in 2 subjects. One confirmed spirit, designation princess. The second is, unclear. Humanoid, male, approximately 20 years of age, claims to be from another world but not a spirit. Displays unusual abilities. Prepare full spectrum analysis for both. Naruto frowned at being discussed like a specimen, but chose not to object for the moment. Beside him, the purple high-red girl was transfixed by the passing scenery, pressing her hand against the window with childlike wonder. Pretty, she whispered. Yeah, it is, Naruto agreed, following her gaze. Despite the alien nature of this world, there was a certain beauty to it, especially now that they weren't being shot at. Hey, we should give you a name. She turned to him, blinking in surprise. A name? Well, we see. And just call you girl, or spirit, forever, he pointed out with a smile. Everyone deserves a name. This caught Kotori's attention. You're suggesting naming a spirit. She doesn't remember hers, Naruto explained. It seems wrong for her not to have one. Kotori tapped her chin thoughtfully. Actually, that might be useful for our purposes as well. Shido, any ideas? Shido considered the girl for a moment. How about Tohka? Tohka, the girl repeated carefully. Today is April 10th, Shido explained. In Japanese, that's Tohka. It seems fitting, since today is when we met you. The girl, Tohka, tested the name again. Tohka, a smile slowly spread across her face, transforming her features from wary to radiant. I like it. My name is Tohka. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and Naruto found himself grinning despite the pain in his shoulder and the uncertainty of their situation. Nice to meet you officially, Tohka. She beamed at him, then turned to Shido. Thank you for my name. Shido smiled back, clearly relieved by her positive reaction. You're welcome, Tohka. Kotori observed the interaction with calculating eyes. Interesting, she murmured again, making a note on her device. Very interesting indeed. The vehicle slowed, turning into what appeared to be an underground entrance. They descended a ramp, light fixtures flashing past as they went deeper beneath the city. Eventually, they came to a stop in a vast chamber filled with similar vehicles and people in uniforms. We've arrived, Kotori announced unnecessarily. Welcome to Ratatosker's main ground facility. The doors opened, and she gestured for them to exit. Naruto stepped out first, instinctively scanning for threats and escape routes, habits ingrained by years of training. The chamber appy, read secure but had multiple access points that could serve as exits if needed. Tohka followed close behind him, her earlier wonder replaced by caution as she took in the unfamiliar surroundings. Armed personnel stood at strategic points throughout the chamber, though they maintained a respectful distance. This way, Kotori directed, leading them toward a large elevator at the far end of the chamber. Our medical team will examine your injuries, she added, glancing at Naruto's shoulder. I heal fast, he replied, which was true even with his chakra behaving strangely. Already the pain had diminished to a dull throb. Nevertheless, we need to assess the damage, she insisted. Both physical and otherwise. The elevator ride was silent, tension thrumming beneath the surface. Naruto maintained an outward calm, but his mind raced through scenarios and contingencies. If this was a trap, he needed to be ready, not just for his own sake but for Tohka's as well. She might be powerful, but her childlike confusion made her vulnerable in ways that raw strength couldn't compensate for. The doors opened to reveal a clinical space resembling a hospital, though with equipment Naruto didn't recognize. A woman with disheveled silver hair and a perpetually tired expression awaited them. Commander, she greeted Kotori with a lazy salute. Subjects have arrived as instructed. Thank you, Rain, Kotori replied. This is Naruto Uzumaki, who claims to be from another world but not a spirit. And this is Tohka, the spirit we've designated Princess Tohka, Rain repeated, making a note on a clipboard. You've named her already. Shido and Naruto did, Kotori clarified. She seems to have responded well to it. Rain nodded, approaching Tohka with a gentle but professional demeanor. Hello, Tohka. I'm Rain Murasama, head analyst for Ratatosker. Would you permit me to conduct some non-invasive scans? They won't hurt, I promise. Tohka looked to Naruto uncertainly. It's okay, he reassured her. I'll be right here. She nodded, allowing Rain to guide her to an examination table equipped with various monitoring devices. Naruto watched carefully, ready to intervene at the first sign of anything threatening. Your turn, Kotori said, gesturing toward a second examination area. Dr. Manoa will see to your injuries. A middle-aged man in a lab coat approached, his expression professional but kind. Those are some nasty burns, he observed, examining Naruto's shoulder. And you're favoring your right leg. Sprained ankle, Naruto confirmed. Nothing serious. Let me be the judge of that. The doctor replied mildly, gesturing for Naruto to sit on an examination table. I'll need to remove your jacket to properly assess the shoulder injury. Naruto complied, wincing sly. TLY as the fabric pulled away from the burned area. The doctor's eyebrows rose as he got a clear look at the wound. This is remarkable, he murmured. These burns should be 3rd degree, but they're already showing advanced healing. Almost as if, I told you, I heal fast, Naruto repeated. It's part of who I am. I see. The doctor made a note on a tablet. And does this rapid healing extend to your ankle as well? Yes, though bone and muscle take longer than skin. Dr. Manoa continued his examination, his expression growing more fascinated by the minute. Commander, he called to Kotori, you might want to see this. Kotori approached, examining the readings on a nearby monitor. These energy signatures, they're similar to spirit readings but fundamentally different in structure. My chakra, Naruto explained. It's how shinobi perform jutsus, what you might call techniques or spells. Chakra, Kotori repeated, as in the Eastern concept of life energy centers. I don't know about that, but where I'm from, chakra is the combination of physical and spiritual energy. Every living thing has it, but shinobi train to control and shape it. Interesting theory, drive, Manoa commented, applying a cooling gel to Naruto's burns. But it doesn't explain the quantum-level anomalies we're detecting in your cellular structure. The what now? Simply put, Kotori interjected. Your very atoms are vibrating at a frequency that doesn't match our dimensional constant. It's subtle, but measurable. Similar to spirits, but again, structurally different. Naruto absorbed this information, trying to connect it to what he knew. So, you're saying I really am from another dimension? Not just another country or something? That appears to be the case, Kotori confirmed. Quote, though how you crossed over without causing a spatial quake on the scale of what we saw with Tohka is puzzling. I was investigating a strange chakra anomaly back home, Naruto recalled. Some kind of distortion that was creating a perfect circle in the forest. When I tried to contain it, it pulled me in. Kotori's eyes narrowed. A pre-existing dimensional breach. That would explain it. You didn't cause the breach. You merely passed through it. But why would such a breach exist in the first place? Dr. Manoa questioned, wrapping Naruto's ankle in a supportive bandage despite his protests that it wasn't necessary. Unknown, Kotori admitted, but it could be related to the increasing frequency of spatial quakes we've been monitoring. She turned back to Naruto. Your arrival may provide valuable data. I'm not a lab rat. Naruto stated firmly. I want to find a way home. Of course, Kotori agreed, though her tone suggested she had other priorities. And we'll assist with that. But in the meantime, your knowledge could help us understand the spirit phenomenon better. Perhaps even prevent further destruction like what happened today. Naruto glanced over at Tohka, who was attentively allowing Rain to scan her with various devices. And what about her? What are your plans for Tohka? That depends largely on her, Kotori replied carefully. And on Shido. Shido, what does he have to do with this? Before Kotori could answer, an alarm blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights began flashing, and personnel rushed to stations with practiced efficiency. What now? Kotori demanded, activating a nearby communication panel. Commander, A frantic voice responded. We're detecting another spatial quake forming downtown. Category D, possibly escalating to C. Evacuation status. Sirens activated. Shelters at 60% capacity and rising. Estimated time to quake, 3 minutes. Kotori cursed under her breath. 2 in 1 day. This is unprecedented. She turned to Rain. Analysis. Incomplete. Rain replied, still focused on her readings from Tohka. But preliminary data suggests this may be a different spirit signature than Princess. A different spirit? Shido questioned, having remained quietly observant until now. You mean another one is appearing? So it seems, Kotori confirmed grimly. Ast will already be mobilizing. Naruto slid off the examination table. Testing his bandaged ankle, it held his weight with only minimal discomfort. I'm going. Excuse me. Kotori raised an eyebrow. If this is anything like what happened with Tohka, innocent people could get hurt. Naruto explained, already reaching for his jacket. I can help. This isn't your fight, Kotori argued. You're injured, in an unfamiliar world, with powers that are clearly not functioning at optimal levels. Doesn't matter, Naruto replied simply. If I can help, I will. That's who I am. I go too, Tohka declared, rising from her examination table. Fight with Naruto? Absolutely not, Kotori objected. The last thing we need is 2 powerful entities in the middle of an active spatial quake zone. The Ast will shoot first and ask questions never. Then what's your plan? Naruto challenged. Send more soldiers to attack this new spirit. How did that work out with Tohka? Kotori's expression hardened. We have protocols. 2 minutes to spatial quake. The voice over the communication system interrupted. I'm not asking permission, Naruto stated, heading for the door. I'm just letting you know what I'm doing. Wait, Shido called, hurrying after him. I'm coming too, Shido, Kotori protested. You know I have to, he replied with unexpected firmness. It's what we've been preparing for. Kotori looked ready to object further but instead sighed in resignation. Fine, but you follow containment protocols exactly. She turned to Naruto. And you? Don't interfere unless absolutely necessary. Observation only. If lives are at risk, I'm stepping in, Naruto countered. That's non-negotiable. They locked gazes for a tense moment before Kotori gave a curt nod. Rain, prep the mobile command center. We're moving to the site. She pointed at Tohka. You stay here. That's final. Tohka looked mutinous but surprisingly didn't argue. Instead, she fixed Naruto with an intense stare. Be careful. Come back. I will, he promised, touched by her concern. Keep an eye on things here, okay? She nodded solemnly, accepting the responsibility. Minutes later, Naruto found himself in another vehicle, this one moving at much higher speeds through streets cleared of civilian traffic. Beside him, Shido fidgeted nervously while Kotori issued rapid-fire orders through her communication device. 1 minute to predicted spatial quake. All units in position, someone reported. What exactly happens during these spatial quakes? Naruto asked Shido. Destruction, he replied grimly. When a spirit crosses into our world, the dimensional boundary ruptures violently. Buildings collapse, streets crack open, anything within the quake radius is essentially obliterated. And this happens often, more frequently in recent years. That's why the city has spatial quake shelters and an early warning system. 30 seconds. Came the update. Naruto closed his eyes, reaching out with his senses as he'd done in the forest before all this began. Despite the interference in his chakra network, he could feel it, the same wrongness in the air, the feeling of reality bending in ways it shouldn't. It started, he murmured, opening his eyes. Northeast, about half a kilometer from here. Kotori shot him a startled look. You can sense it. Yes, it's similar to what brought me here, but different somehow. More controlled. The vehicle came to an abrupt halt. Outside the windows, Naruto could see buildings vibrating, windows shattering as an unnatural purple light bloomed in the distance. Deploy defensive perimeter, Kotori ordered. Fraxinus, maintain position above the quake zone. Full sensors active. People scrambled to follow orders as screens within the vehicle activated, showing various angles of the developing spatial quake. Unlike the chaotic vortex that had appeared with Tohka, this distortion seemed to pulse with a regular rhythm, expanding and contracting with precision. That's unusual, Rain commented. having joined them in the mobile command center. The energy signature is highly structured. Almost as if someone's controlling it. Naruto finished for her, recognition dawning. This isn't random. Whoever's coming through is doing it deliberately. Impossible, Kotori declared. Spirits don't control their manifestation process. It's a byproduct of dimensional transition. Maybe this one's different, Shido suggested, watching the screens with trepidation. The spatial quake reached its climax, a final pulse of energy radiating outward before dissipating far more quickly than seemed normal. When the visual interference cleared, the cameras revealed a figure standing at the center of a perfectly circular crater. A girl, or young woman, with elaborate gothic clothing, pale skin, and heterochromatic eyes, one red, one golden. Her most striking feature was her hair, black and tied in uneven twin tails. She held an ornate rifle in one hand and what appeared to be a pocket watch in the other. Spirit confirmed, an operator announced, no match to previous records. Designating as, unknown, nightmare, Kotori corrected, designation, nightmare, why that name? Naruto asked. Look at her shadow, Kotori replied grimly. Naruto focused on the screen, noting with shock that the girl's shadow didn't match her form. Instead, it spread outward like dark ink, forming shapes T. Hat resembled hands reaching up from the ground. What the hell? He muttered. Ask deployment in 30 seconds, someone reported. We need to move, Shido stated, already heading for the exit. Before they engage, Shido, wait for proper, Kotori began, but he was already out the door. Impulsive, Naruto commented with a hint of admiration. I like him. He moved to follow, but Kotori grabbed his arm. This isn't like before, she warned. We have no data on this spirit. She could be far more dangerous than Tohka. All the more reason not to leave Shido alone with her, Naruto countered, gently but firmly removing her hand from his arm. Outside, the air tasted of ozone and something else, a metallic tang that reminded Naruto of blood. He sprinted after Shido, quickly catching up thanks to his enhanced speed despite his injuries. You have a plan, right? He asked as they ran toward the crater. Sort of, Shido admitted. Talk to her, try to calm her down before the Ast arrives. That's not a plan, that's a goal. Naruto pointed out. What happens if she attacks you on sight? Then I improvise, Shido replied with a nervous laugh. Wouldn't be the first time. They reached the edge of the crater just as the girl, Nightmare, began to move, surveying her surroundings with calculated precision. Unlike Tohka's confusion, this spirit appeared fully aware of where she was and what she was doing. Hello, Shido called out, sliding down the crater's edge with more courage than grace. Nightmare turned toward him, her mismatched eyes narrowing slightly. How interesting, she remarked, her voice cultured and confident. A human, approaching willingly. Are you brave or merely foolish? Neither, Shido replied, coming to a stop at a respectful distance. I just want to talk. Talk, she tilted her head, a small smile playing at her lips. How novel. And what about your friend lurking at the edge of my little entrance? Naruto grimaced, realizing he hadn't been as stealthy as he'd intended. He stepped forward, sliding down to join Shido. Just making sure he doesn't get himself killed. Noble, Nightmare commented, studying him with growing interest. But you're not quite human, are you? Not like him. She pointed at Shido with her rifle, though the gesture seemed more contemplative than threatening. It's complicated, Naruto replied. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. The reckless one here is Shido. Reckless, she repeated, amusement coloring her tone. Perhaps, or perhaps merely playing his part in the grand theater of fate. She performed a small curtsy. Since we're making introductions, you may call me Kurumi Tokisaki. Shido blinked in surprise. You already have a name. Of course. Did you expect me to be some amnesiac waif, lost and confused upon arrival? Kurumi laughed softly. How disappointed you must be. Not disappointed, Shido assured her. Just surprised. The other spirit we met today didn't remember her name. Kurumi's expression sharpened. Another spirit. Today. How fascinating. Her gaze shifted to Naruto. And were you there for that arrival as well, mister? Not quite human. I was part of it, Naruto answered honestly. Got pulled here from my world during some kind of dimensional disturbance. Curiouser and curiouser, Kurumi murmured. The boundaries must be thinning more rapidly than anticipated. Before either Naruto or Shido could question what she meant, the distinctive sound of ast propulsion systems filled the air. Kurumi sighed, her amused expression cooling considerably. And so the hunters arrive, right on schedule. She raised her rifle casually. Such predictable creatures. Wait, Shido urged. You don't have to fight them. Don't I? Kurumi questioned, one eyebrow rising elegantly. Experience suggests otherwise. Naruto stepped forward, positioning himself between Kurumi and the approaching ast units. There's been enough destruction for one day. More fighting won't solve anything. How pragmatic, Kurumi remarked. But pragmatism rarely changes the nature of things, does it? They will attack because that is what they do. I will defend because that is what I must do. The first ast units appeared over the crater's edge. Weapons trained on Kurumi. Naruto recognized Origami among them, her damaged equipment replaced with new gear. Her cold gaze flickered briefly to him before focusing on Kurumi. Spirit identified, she reported. Civilians in the danger zone. Requesting permission to engage. Civilians. Kurumi laughed. Is that what you call them? Your little pets. Her shadow began to expand, darkening the ground around her. How amusing. Kurumi, please, Shido attempted again. There's another way. You don't have to be alone, always fighting. Something in his words seemed to reach her. Her shadow paused its expansion, and her expression softened fractionally. Such innocence, she murmured. It's almost refreshing. A volley of warning shots struck the ground near her feet. Kurumi's moment of contemplation vanished, replaced by cold determination. Time's up, she announced, her rifle dissolving and reforming into an ornate flintlock pistol. Perhaps we'll continue this conversation another time, Shido. You too, Mr. Uzumaki. I find you both intriguing. Her shadow erupted upward, forming a barrier between them and the AST. Through it, Naruto could see distorted shapes moving, hands, faces. Things that shouldn't exist. Get down, he shouted, tackling Shido to the ground as ast units opened fire in earnest. The shadow absorbed the energy blasts, seeming to grow stronger with each impact. Kurumi stepped backward, her form becoming indistinct as she merged with the darkness. Until we meet again, her voice echoed, and then she was gone, the shadow cola. Ing in on itself and vanishing without a trace. The ast continued firing for several seconds before realizing their target had disappeared. Origami directed her team to perform a grid search, her expression betraying nothing of her thoughts. Naruto helped Shido to his feet, both of them dusty but unharmed. That was different, he commented. Very, Shido agreed, brushing himself off. She was so aware, in control, and dangerous, Naruto added. Did you feel that shadow? It wasn't just darkness. It was hungry somehow. Origami descended to their position, her weapons lowered but not holstered. Civilian interference in ast operations is prohibited, she stated flatly. Especially after prior warnings. We were trying to prevent another battle like this morning, Shido explained. It worked, didn't it? No property damage, no injuries. The spirit escaped, Origami countered. That is a tactical failure. Better than a bloodbath, Naruto argued. No one got hurt this time. I'd call that a success. Origami studied him for a long moment. Your status is still under review. Further interference will result in your classification as a hostile entity, regardless of Ratatosker's protection. Is that a threat? Naruto asked mildly. A statement of fact, she replied before activating her propulsion system and rejoining her team above. Kotori arrived moments later, flanked by Ratatosker security personnel. What happened? She demanded. Our sensors lost track of the spirit's energy signature completely. It didn't disperse, it just vanished. She vanished, Shido corrected. Her name is Kurumi Tokasaki. She told you her name. Kotori's eyes widened. Voluntarily. She seemed to know exactly what she was doing, Naruto explained. Nothing like Tohka. No confusion, no memory loss. She was in complete control of her powers. Kotori frowned, inputting something into her device. That contradicts everything we know about spirits. They don't retain memories or identity through the manifestation process. The trauma of dimensional transfer wipes them clean. Well, this one didn't get the memo, Naruto replied. And there's something else. She mentioned boundaries. Thinning, as if she knew what was happening between dimensions. Impossible, Kotori muttered, though she sounded less certain. Spirits don't have awareness of interdimensional physics. Maybe our understanding of spirits isn't as complete as you thought, Shido suggested gently. Kotori looked ready to argue but instead sighed heavily. Let's get back to headquarters. The Ast will handle the perimeter sweep. She glanced at Naruto. And you need to complete your medical examination. Your shoulder is bleeding again. Naruto looked down, noticing fresh red staining the bandage's drive. Manoa had applied. The exertion must have reopened the wound. It'll be fine, he insisted, though the persistent weakness in his chakra network concerned him. Normally, such an injury would have healed completely by now. We're not having this argument again, Kotori stated firmly. Medical evaluation, then we discuss what happened here. That's non-negotiable. As they made their way back to the waiting vehicles, Naruto found his thoughts returning to Kurumi. Unlike Tohka, whose power seemed tied to her emotions and instincts, Kurumi appeared to be operating with purpose. And then there was her comment about boundaries thinning. You think she knows something about how you got here? Shido asked quietly, seeming to read his thoughts. Maybe, Naruto acknowledged. Either way, I don't think we've seen the last of her. Agreed, Shido said with a small smile. She didn't strike me as the type to make empty promises. Back at the Ratatosker facility, they found Tohka pacing anxiously in the medical ward. Her face lit up at their return, particularly when she spotted Naruto. You came back, she exclaimed, rushing forward only to stop short when she noticed his bloodied bandages. You're hurt worse. It's nothing, Naruto assured her. Just reopened the wound a bit. I'll be good as new soon. What happened? She demanded. The loud one. She pointed at Kotori, wouldn't tell me anything. The loud one has a name, Kotori muttered, though without real heat. And I was busy coordinating a field operation. While drive, Manoa tended to Naruto's shoulder again. Shido explained what had happened with Kurumi. Tohka listened intently, her expression darkening when he described how differently Kurumi had behaved. She knew herself, Tohka questioned, touching the jacket Shido had given her earlier. I don't understand. Why do I not remember, but she does. That's what we'd all like to know, Rain commented, entering with a tablet full of data. Commander, preliminary analyse is of both spatial quake events shows significant differences in formation patterns. The second event, Nightmare's appearance, showed evidence of precise control over the dimensional breach. How is that possible? Kotori questioned. Unknown, Rain admitted, but it suggests Nightmare may have experience with dimensional travel. Possibly multiple previous manifestations. Or she remembers her previous appearances, Shido suggested. Unlike, he trailed off, glancing apologetically at Tohka, who looked increasingly troubled. Hey, Naruto said gently, catching her attention. Everyone's different. Maybe you'll remember more with time. You think so? She asked hopefully. I know so, he replied with confidence he didn't entirely feel. Memory can be tricky. Sometimes it just needs the right trigger to come back. Tohka seemed comforted by this, her expression brightening. Then I will look for triggers. Her enthusiasm brought smiles to several faces, momentarily lightening the tense atmosphere. While this is all very touching, Kotori interjected, we have serious matters to address. 2 spirit manifestations in one day, plus an interdimensional traveler who isn't technically a spirit but displays similar energy readings. This isn't coincidence. The boundaries are thinning, Naruto quoted Kurumi. That's what she said. What if all of this, my arrival, Tohka, Kurumi, is co-connected to some larger problem between dimensions? A cascading dimensional breach, Rain mused. Theoretically possible, though we've never observed such a phenomenon. Great, Kotori sighed. What we needed, an interdimensional crisis on top of everything else. She fixed Naruto with a penetrating stare. You're at the center of this somehow. Your arrival may have been the catalyst. Or a symptom of the same problem. Naruto countered, uncomfortable with the implication that he'd caused all this. I was investigating a dimensional anomaly on my side, remember? Something was already happening before I got pulled through. Fair point, Kotori conceded. Either way, you're our best lead on understanding what's happening. And Kurumi, Shido added. She seemed to know something about the boundaries thinning. We need to find her again. Easier said than done, Rain pointed out. Her energy signature completely disappeared from our sensors. We have no way to track her. Then, we'll have to wait until she shows herself again, Kotori decided. In the meantime, we need to secure both Tohka and Naruto. If the AST decides their threats, I can take care of myself, Naruto stated. And I won't let anything happen to Tohka either. Noble sentiment, Kotori replied dryly. But the AST has resources beyond what you've seen, and your injuries aren't healing as quickly as you claim they should. You're vulnerable in this world, whether you want to admit it or not. Naruto couldn't entirely refute this. His chakra was still behaving erratically, and his normal healing ability seemed compromised. As much as he hated to admit weakness, she had a point. What do you suggest then? He asked. Protective custody, Kotori answered promptly. We have safe houses designed to shield spirit energy signatures from detection. You'll stay there until we better understand the situation. Like prisoners, Tohka questioned, tension returning to her posture. Like guests, Kotori corrected. With certain security restrictions, yes, but for your protection as much as ours. And if we refuse, Naruto pressed, then you're on your own against organizations with far less interest in your well-being than Ratatosker. Kotori replied bluntly, the AST would contain you by force. Other groups would dissect you for study. Your options are limited, Naruto Uzumaki. The stark assessment hung in the air. Naruto exchanged glances with Tohka, seeing his own frustration reflected in her violet eyes. Fine, he conceded finally. We'll stay at your safe house, for now. But we come and go as we please. And if we decide to leave completely, you don't try to stop us. Kotori considered this, clearly weighing risks and benefits. Acceptable, with one condition. You notify us before a NY excursion so we can provide cover against AST detection systems. Deal, Naruto agreed, seeing the pragmatism in her requirement. Then it's settled, Kotori declared. Shido will accompany you to the safe house and help you get situated. She turned to her brother. The location is your apartment building. My apartment, Shido repeated, startled. But, it's already configured with spirit energy dampening technology. Kotori explained. And having you there provides perfect cover. The AST already knows you're connected to Ratatosker but considers you a civilian asset rather than a combatant. I guess that makes sense. Shido admitted reluctantly. Then it's decided, Kotori concluded. Dr. Manoa, finish treating Naruto's injuries. Rain, prepare civilian clothing for both of them. They can't go around the city looking like cosplay characters. We'll move them tonight, after the AST completes their sweep of the area. As preparations were made, Naruto found himself watching Tohka, who was examining her reflection in a nearby glass surface with a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. Despite the chaos of the day, he felt an odd sense of responsibility toward her, this powerful but innocent being thrust into a world that immediately tried to destroy her. We'll figure this out, he promised, coming to stand beside her. Both of us, together. Tohka looked up at him, hope and trust in her eyes. Together, she agreed, taking his hand as she had earlier. Friends, Naruto confirmed, squeezing her hand gently. In the reflection, behind them, he caught a glimpse of something moving in the shadows, a silhouette with uneven twin tails and mismatched eyes. But when he turned to look, nothing was there except the faint echo of a quiet laugh. The boundaries were thinning indeed. Chapter 1 end. Chapter 2. The Fox and the Princess. Morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains, casting gentle patterns across Naruto's face. For a moment, disorientation gripped him. This wasn't his apartment in Konoha, with its view of the Hokage monument and the comforting clutter of scrolls and instant ramen cups. The ceiling above him was pristine white, the air scented with unfamiliar cleaning products rather than the earthy smell of the Hidden Leaf Village. Reality crashed back as he sat up. The dimensional rift, the spatial quake, Tohka and Kurumi, the AST. Right, he muttered, running a hand through sleep-tousled hair. Still here. He glanced down at his shoulder, carefully removing the bandage's drive. Manoa had applied. The burn had healed significantly over night, Better than a normal human's recovery rate but still slower than his usual healing factor. Within his chakra network, he could sense Kurama's presence, dormant but stable. The Nine Tails chakra seemed to be gradually realigning with his own, though the process felt frustratingly slow. A crash from the kitchen jolted him fully awake. Naruto was on his feet in an instant, moving silently. Towa rode the sound with kunai in hand, a reflexive precaution ingrained by years of shinobi training. "No, not like that," came Shido's patient voice. "You have to crack them gently, Tohka. But they are too fragile. How can food be so weak?" Naruto relaxed, tucking the kunai away as he padded into the kitchen. The sight that greeted him brought an involuntary smile to his face. Tohka stood beside Shido at the stove, egg yolk dripping from her fingers and a look of intense concentration on her face. Broken eggshells littered the counter, and a smear of what looked like pancake batter adorned her cheek. "Morning," Naruto greeted, leaning against the doorframe. Tohka's face brightened immediately. "Naruto, you are awake. We are making breakfast with the eggs, but they are very stubborn." "I can see that," he replied, his smile widening. The domestic scene was so incongruous with yesterday's battle that it felt almost surreal. "Need some help?" "I've got it under control," Shido assured him. Ow, the kitchen state suggested otherwise. "Tohka's just learning about food preparation." "Food is amazing," Tohka declared with absolute conviction. "Shido showed me bread last night, and now eggs. So many things to eat in this world." Quote, her childlike enthusiasm was infectious. Naruto found himself chuckling as he moved to the sink to wash his hands. "Here, let me show you a trick for cracking eggs that my friend Sakura taught me." Taking an egg from the carton, he demonstrated a gentle tap against the counter's edge, followed by a clean break using both thumbs. The contents fell neatly into the waiting bowl without shell fragments. Tohka watched with rapt attention, her violet eyes wide. "You make it look so easy. Try it," Naruto encouraged, placing another egg in her hand and guiding her through the motion. Gentle tap, then thumbs to open. Her face scrunched in concentration as she followed his instructions. The egg cracked more forcefully than intended, but most of the contents made it into the bowl with only minor shell intrusion. "I did it," she exclaimed, beaming with pride. "Great job," Naruto praised, fishing out the shell fragments with a fork. "Much better than my first attempt. I ended up with more shell than egg." The simple cooking lesson continued as Shido prepared the rest of breakfast, a Japanese-style meal with rice, miso soup, grilled fish, and the eggs they were scrambling. Naruto found himself relaxing despite the strangeness of his situation. There was something grounding about mundane activities like cooking, something that reminded him of quieter moments in Konoha between missions. "So," he said as they sat down to eat, "what's the plan for today?" Shido glanced at his phone, checking messages. "Kotori wants you both to stay here while Ratatosker analyzes yesterday's data. She's arranged for basic supplies to be delivered, including clothing and personal items." "House arrest, you mean?" Naruto commented, sampling the miso soup, different from what he was used to, but good. "More like cautious acclimation," Shido offered diplomatically. "The city's still on high alert after 2 spatial quakes in one day. Asset patrols have increased, and there are rumors about unidentified entities circulating online." "That's us," Tohka said around a mouthful of rice. "Unidentified entities, like we are mysterious creatures." "Well, to them, you kind of are," Shido pointed out gently. "Spirits aren't well understood by the general public." "And what about me?" Naruto questioned. "I'm not a spirit, according to your sister's tests." Shido hesitated. "You're a complication. Your energy readings are similar to spirits in some ways but fundamentally different in structure. Ratatosker doesn't know how to classify you yet." "Story of my life," Naruto muttered, thinking of his childhood in Konoha. Always the odd one out, never fitting neatly into categories. "Is being unclassified bad?" Tohka asked, picking up on his tone. "Not bad," Naruto clarified. "Just complicated. People tend to fear what they don't understand. Like how the flying women fear spirits," Tohka observed with surprising insight. "The asked," Shido confirmed. "Yes, how their fear is based on the destruction spatial quakes cause when spirits manifest. They're trying to protect people." By attacking those who don't intend harm, Naruto pointed out, unable to keep the edge from his voice. Tohka wasn't trying to hurt anyone. She was defending herself. An awkward silence fell over the table. Naruto recognized he was projecting some of his own experiences onto Tohka's situation. The villagers who had feared him for containing the 9 tails, judging him for something beyond his control. Sorry, he offered. It's just where I come from. I've seen what happens when people act out of fear instead of understanding. No apology needed, Shido said. You're not wrong. That's actually why Ratatoskr exists, to find peaceful solutions to the spirit problem instead of just eliminating them. What is Ratatoskr exactly? Naruto asked, grateful for the conversational shift. Some kind of secret government agency. Shido laughed. Not quite. It's an independent organization founded by, well, powerful people with resources. Their approach is based on the theory that spirits can be pacified through positive emotional connections rather than force. Emotional connections? Tohka echoed, looking curious. Yes, Shido replied, suddenly seeming uncomfortable. The idea is that helping spirits form bonds with this world reduces their destructive potential and helps them integrate peacefully. Like friendship, Tohka concluded, looking pleased with her deduction. Something like that, Shido agreed, though Naruto caught a hint of evasion in his tone. After breakfast, Shido showed them how to operate various appliances in the apartment, the television, shower, and other modern conveniences that were entirely foreign to both Naruto and Tohka. The shinobi adapted quickly, recognizing similarities to some of the more advanced technology in Konoha, but Tohka approached each new device with a mixture of suspicion and wonder. And this box makes the invisible pictures appear? She asked, staring at the television remote with fascination. It sends a signal to the TV, Shido explained patiently. The pictures are transmitted through the air and then displayed on the screen. Naruto watched their interaction with amusement, reminded of his own confusion when first encountering some of the more complex technology in the ninja world. There was something endearing about Tohka's unfiltered reactions, her joy at discovering something new, her frustration when she didn't understand, her determination to master each unfamiliar concept. A chime from the doorbell interrupted the impromptu technology lesson. Shido checked the security monitor, another unfamiliar feature of this world that Naruto made mental note of. It's Rain with the supplies, Shido announced, moving to answer. The silver-haired analyst entered carrying several shopping bags, her perpetually exhausted expression unchanged from yesterday. Clothing and necessities, she stated without preamble, setting the bags on the counter. Selected based on estimated sizing and basic requirements. Thank you, Naruto said politely. Rain nodded, then turned to Shido. The Ender requests an update on their adaptation progress. So far, so good, Shido reported. No issues beyond normal adjustment to unfamiliar surroundings. And his physical condition? Rain inquired, glancing at Naruto's shoulder where the bandages had been removed. Healing well, Naruto answered for himself. Faster than you'd expect but slower than I'm used to. Fascinating, Rain murmured, producing a small device from her pocket. May I? Naruto hesitated, then nodded. The analyst held the device near his shoulder, observing readings on its tiny screen. Cellular regeneration rate approximately 4 times human norm. She noted, down from the estimated 10 times rate indicated by your previous injuries healing timeline. Your energy stabilization continues but remains incomplete. What about Kurama? Naruto asked. Kurama, Rain questioned. The 9-tailed fox, Naruto explained. The entity I contain. I can sense his presence, but it's muted compared to normal. Rain's red eyes showed a flash of academic interest. The quantum resonance pattern within your chakra system does show a secondary energy signature, distinct but intertwined with your own. It appears to be realigning. For lack of a better term. That's good, right? Tohka asked, moving closer to Naruto with concern evident in her expression. Theoretically, Rain replied, though we lack sufficient data on his baseline state to make definitive projections. She turned her attention to Tohka. And you? Any returned memories or unusual sensations? Tohka shook her head. No memories. But food is amazing. And Naruto showed me how to crack eggs without crushing them to dust. A hint of a smile touched Rain's lips. Progress indeed. She turned back to Shido. The commander will be pleased. She's authorized limited outdoor excursions beginning tomorrow, provided they remain within range of our monitoring systems and avoid AST patrol routes. We get to go outside. Tohka brightened visibly. Within parameters, Rain cautioned. No powers, no drawing attention. You'll need to blend in with the general population. I'm good at disguises, Naruto offered, forming a hand sign. Transform. A puff of smoke enveloped him briefly before clearing to reveal a nondescript young man with brown hair and average features, a perfect civilian disguise. The effort cost more chakra than it should have, but the technique held. Rain blinked, her typical impassivity briefly broken by surprise. Impressive molecular restructuring. Your physical form actually changed at the cellular level. She checked her device again. Though the energy expenditure seems disproportionate to the effect. Naruto released the transformation with another puff of smoke, feeling the drain more acutely than he would have back home. Yeah, it's harder here. Everything takes more effort. Dimensional friction, Rain suggested. Your energy patterns are attempting to align with this world's quantum frequency. She made another note. I'll add this to our research parameters. After Rain departed, Naruto explored the clothing she had brought. The styles were similar enough to what he'd seen in Konoha, if more uniform and lacking the distinctive designs ninja often favored. Basic pants, shirts, jackets, all in subdued colors that wouldn't draw attention. Tohka seemed less impressed with her options. They are all so plain, she commented, holding up a simple blouse and skirt. Where are the beautiful parts? They're meant to help you blend in, Shido explained. Most people here dress pretty ordinarily for day-to-day activities. But I like my astral dress, she pouted, referring to the elaborate outfit she'd manifested with during her arrival. You're what now? Naruto questioned. Astral dress, Shido clarified. It's what we call the clothing spirits manifest with, actually a form of defensive barrier made from their own energy rather than physical fabric. Interesting, Naruto mused, thin. King of his own transformation techniques in Kurama's chakra cloak. So it's a form of energy manipulation, not just fashion. Exactly, Shido confirmed. But wearing it in public would immediately identify Tohka as a spirit. Which is why these regular clothes are necessary. Tohka sighed but accepted the explanation, reluctantly gathering her new clothes to try on. She disappeared into the bathroom, leaving Naruto and Shido alone in the living room. There's something you're not telling us about Ratatoskir's methods, Naruto stated once he was sure Tohka was out of earshot. This emotional connection approach. There's more to it than friendship, isn't there? Shido shifted uncomfortably. It's complicated. I'm good with complicated, Naruto pressed, crossing his arms. If it involves Tohka, I want to know. Shido hesitated, then sighed. Ratatoskir's research indicates that spirits can be pacified and their powers sealed through a deep emotional connection with a human. Specifically, romantic feelings that culminate in, well, in what? Naruto prompted when Shido trailed off. A kiss, Shido admitted, his cheeks reddening slightly. The theory is that a genuine emotional bond, sealed with a kiss, can transfer and contain a spirit's power, rendering them essentially human and preventing further spatial quakes. Naruto stared at him. You're telling me your organizatee On's grand solution is to make spirits fall in love and kiss someone? When you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous, Shido mumbled. But the science behind it is solid. Emotional energy creates quantum resonance patterns that can stabilize spirit power. And let me guess, you're the designated kisser. Shido's deeper blush confirmed Naruto's suspicion. I have a unique ability to absorb and decontain spirit energy without harmful side effects. Most humans would be overwhelmed by the power transfer. Naruto processed this information, trying to reconcile it with his own understanding of chakra and energy systems. In a strange way, it wasn't entirely unlike some of the sealing techniques from his world, creating connections between vessels to transfer or contain power. Does Tohka know about this plan? He asked finally. Not yet, Shido admitted. We typically allow spirits to acclimate and form natural bonds before introducing that aspect. Forcing it doesn't work. The emotional connection has to be genuine. And what about Kurumi? Would you try the same approach with her? If possible, Shido replied. though she presents unique challenges given her awareness and apparent control over her powers. You're playing a dangerous game, Naruto warned. These are people with thoughts and feelings, not just power sources to be contained. I know that, Shido said with surprising intensity. That's why I insisted on being part of this. The AST's approach is to simply eliminate spirits. At least Ratatoskr is trying to find a way for them to live peaceful lives. Naruto couldn't argue with that logic, even if he found the methods questionable. Before he could respond, Tohka emerged from the bathroom wearing her new clothes, a simple white blouse and blue skirt that somehow transformed her from otherworldly being to ordinary girl. How do I look? She asked, turning in a small circle. Are these correct? You look perfect, Shido assured her. Very natural. Tohka beamed at the praise. Then looked to Naruto expectantly. You look great, he said honestly. Like you belong here. Her smile widened, genuine pleasure in her eyes. Good. I want to fit in this world. It has eggs and bread and television. Much better than fighting flying women. The innocent comment brought laughter from both young men, momentarily easing the tension of their previous conversation. The rest of the day passed in relative calm as they settled into the apartment. Shido had to leave for a few hours. School obligations, he explained, leaving Naruto and Tohka to explore their temporary home further. Tohka proved to be an enthusiastic, if easily distracted, student of modern conveniences. She delighted in the refrigerator's cold air, spent 20 minutes mesmerized by the washing machine's spin cycle, and nearly flooded the bathroom experimenting with the shower's water pressure settings. Everything is so complicated but so simple at the same time, she observed as Naruto helped her mop up the bathroom floor. You push a button, and things happen. It's pretty convenient, Naruto agreed. Though I still think chakra-based techniques are more versatile. Chakra, Tohka repeated thoughtfully. That's your power, right? Different from my spirit energy. Similar but different, Naruto explained, demonstrating by channeling a small amount of chakra to his hand, creating a faint blue glow. It's the combination of physical and spiritual energy that every living thing has, though shinobi learn to control and shape it. Can I learn to use chakra? Tohka asked eagerly. I don't know, Naruto admitted. I've never tried to teach someone from another world. But maybe we can experiment a little. They moved to the living room, where Naruto guided Tohka through basic meditation techniques, the first step in chakra awareness that academy students learned in Konoha. Close your eyes and focus on the energy inside you, he instructed, sitting cross-legged on the floor across from her. Try to feel the flow, like a river running through your body. Tohka mimicked his posture, her face screwed up in concentration, far too tense for proper meditation. Relax, Naruto advised gently. You can't force it, just breathe and be aware. Her expression softened, and her breathing slowed. For several minutes, they sat in silence, the only sound the distant hum of traffic outside in the apartment's quiet climate control system. I feel something, Tohka said eventually, her eyes still closed. Not like when I summoned Sandalphon. Different, quieter. Sandalphon, Naruto questioned. My sword, she clarified. Its name is Sandalphon. I don't know how I know that, but I do. That's progress, Naruto encouraged. Names have power. Remembering your weapon's name might help unlock other memories. Tohka opened her eyes, looking thoughtful. Maybe, but this energy, it's not the same as when I call Sandalphon. It feels more connected to everything. That sounds like natural chakra, Naruto observed with surprise. The energy that exists in all living things. Most people can't sense it without specialized training. Is that good? It's impressive, Naruto confirmed. It took me weeks to become aware of natural chakra, and that was with Toad Sages teaching me. Tohka brightened at the praise. What are Toad Sages? Are they wise talking toads? Naruto laughed. Actually, yes. They're ancient toads who've mastered nature energy at Mount Myoboku. They taught me Sage Mode, a technique that lets me enhance my abilities by drawing in natural chakra. Your world sounds strange, Tohka commented. Though her tone was curious rather than judgmental. Says the girl who arrived in a spatial quake with an energy sword the size of a building, Naruto teased. Tohka giggled. A light, musical sound that Naruto realized he hadn't heard from her before. It transformed her face, erasing the last traces of the wary, battle-ready spirit and revealing the young woman beneath. "I wish I could remember where I came from," she said after her laughter faded. "It's strange, knowing I exist but not knowing why or how." "Memory can be tricky," Naruto said, thinking of his own complicated history with forgotten and restored memories. "Sometimes the mind protects itself by hiding painful things." "You think my memories are painful?" Naruto considered this. "I don't know. But appearing in this world through a spatial quake, immediately being attacked, that's traumatic. Maybe your mind is giving you time to adjust before bringing everything else back." Tohka nodded slowly, finding wisdom in his words. "Then I will be patient and make new memories while I wait for the old ones." "That's a good approach," Naruto agreed. "New memories with friends." "Friends," Tohka repeated warmly. "Like you and Shido." The mention of Shido brought back their earlier conversation about Ratatoskir's methods. Naruto felt a twinge of unease, wondering if he should tell Tohka about the organization's ultimate goal for her. Before he could decide, a notification chime from the tablet Rain had left them interrupted his thoughts. The screen displayed a message from Kotori, Anyo. Malu's energy readings detected in Central Park area. Not spirit level, but unusual. Sending coordinates. Observation only. Do not engage. "What is it?" Tohka asked, noting his frown. "Kotori wants us to check something out," Naruto explained, showing her the tablet. "Some kind of strange energy reading. But I thought we were supposed to stay here today." "We are," Naruto confirmed, already ing toward the clothing Rain had brought. "But I'm getting restless, and this sounds interesting. Besides, it's just observation, no engagement." "What does observation mean?" Tohka asked, watching as he selected a simple outfit, dark pants and a blue jacket over a white t-shirt. "It means we look but don't touch," Naruto clarified, ducking into the bathroom to change. "We see what's happening and report back without getting involved." When he emerged, Tohka had already changed into another of her new outfits, a casual dress with a light jacket. "I will observe with you," she declared. "It could be dangerous," Naruto cautioned. "So could staying here alone," she countered reasonably. "And we are friends. Friends help each other observe strange energies." Her logic was hard to refute, especially delivered with such earnest confidence. "All right," Naruto agreed. "But we follow Kotori's rules. Look but don't engage unless absolutely necessary." "Unless necessary," Tohka repeated solemnly. "I understand." Naruto sent a quick acknowledgement to Kotori, noting that both he and Tohka would investigate. The response was almost immediate. "Absolutely not. Wait for Ratatoskir personnel." "Oops. Connection problems," Naruto muttered, powering down the tablet. "Guess we didn't get that last message." Tohka's expression turned sly. "Is this what you call a ninja deception?" "Something like that," Naruto admitted with a grin. "Ready for our first mission together?" Tohka nodded enthusiastically, practically bouncing with excitement as they prepared to leave. Naruto performed a quick transforma to alter his appearance. Nothing dramatic, just enough to avoid recognition from any AST members who might have glimpsed him during yesterday's confrontation. The fresh air felt wonderful after being cooped up in the apartment. Tohka seemed to agree, taking deep breaths and looking around with wide-eyed curiosity as they made their way through the residential neighborhood toward the coordinates Kotori had provided. So many people, she marveled, watching pedestrians going about their daily lives. All different, all busy. "Just like in my world," Naruto observed. "People are pretty much the same everywhere, working, shopping, living their lives." "Do they know about spirits? About spatial quakes?" "I think they know spatial quakes happen, but maybe not what causes them," Naruto surmised, noting the emergency shelter signs posted at regular intervals along the streets. Shido mentioned early warning systems, so they must be somewhat common. Tohka's expression sobered. "So I could have hurt many people when I arrived." "But you didn't," Naruto reminded her. "And it wasn't your fault. You didn't choose how you entered this world." She nodded, though her eyes remained troubled. Hei continued toward the park in thoughtful silence, Naruto occasionally checking his phone's map application, another modern convenience Shido had explained that morning. The Central Park was a large green space in the middle of the city, with manicured gardens, walking paths, and recreational areas. On a pleasant afternoon like this one, It was filled with people enjoying the outdoors, families with children, elderly couples on benches, students reading under trees. Do you sense anything unusual? Naruto asked quietly as they entered the park, extending his own chakra awareness as subtly as possible. Tohka closed her eyes briefly, concentrating. There, she said after a moment, pointing toward a secluded area near a small artificial pond. Something feels wrong, like the air is folding. I feel it too, Naruto confirmed, impressed by her sensitivity. Good catch. Let's get closer, but casually, like we're just taking a walk. They strolled toward the pond, maintaining the apron CE of ordinary park goers while staying alert. As they approached, Naruto could feel the disturbance more clearly, a subtle wrongness in the fabric of reality, similar to what he'd experienced in the foe rest before being pulled into this world, but on a much smaller scale. The area around the pond appeared normal at first glance, but as they drew nearer, Naruto noticed that the water's surface wasn't behaving quite right. Instead of reflecting the sky and surrounding trees, it showed brief glimpses of somewhere else, a barren landscape under a purple-tinged sky. What is that? Tohka whispered, stopping at the pond's edge. I'm not sure, Naruto replied, crouching to examine the phenomenon more closely. But it reminds me of how I got here, a tear between worlds. The water rippled unnaturally, the alien landscape becoming clearer for a moment before fading back to normal reflections. No one else in the park seemed to notice anything unusual, walking past the pond without a second glance. Why can't they see it? Tohka wondered, noting the oblivious pedestrians. Maybe only those with spirit energy or chakra can perceive dimensional disturbances, Naruto suggested. Like how only trained shinobi can detect certain types of genjutsu. He reached out cautiously, his hand hovering just above the water's surface. The air felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Careful, Tohka warned, her hand moving instinctively toward where her sword would materialize. Just testing something, Naruto assured her. He produced a small leaf from his pocket, a habit from his day's practicing nature transformation, and dropped it onto the water's surface. Instead of floating, the leaf vanished the instant it touched the water, causing a brief flash of purple light. Definitely a dimensional breach, Naruto concluded, pulling his hand back, but contained somehow, not expanding like the one that brought me here. Should we tell the loud one, Kotori? Tohka asked. Yeah, we should report this. But first, Naruto broke off as he sensed a familiar presence approaching rapidly from above. Get down. He pulled Tohka behind a nearby tree just as a white-haired figure descended near the pond. Origami Tobichi, wearing civilian clothes rather than harassed combat gear, surveyed the area with clinical precision before removing a small device from her pocket. Target anomaly confirmed, she spoke into the device. Category D spatial distortion, non-expanding. Readings consistent with interdimensional breach rather than spirit manifestation. She moved around the pond, taking Suramons with another device that resembled the one Rain had used earlier. Her movements were methodical, efficient, a stark contrast to the casual park goers around her. What is she doing here? Tohka whispered, tension evident in her voice. Is she hunting again? I don't think so, Naruto replied quietly. She's investigating, just like we are. And without her combat gear. I don't trust her, Tohka stated flatly. She tried to kill me. I know, but right now, she might have information we need. Naruto considered their options. Stay here, I'm going to try something. Before Tohka could protest, Naruto stepped out from behind the tree, maintaining his transformed appearance as he approached Origami casually, as if just passing by. She glanced up sharply at his approach, her posture instantly defensive despite her civilian attire. Interesting pond, isn't it? Naruto commented innocently. The way the light plays on the surface. Origami's eyes narrowed. This area is under investigation. Please move along. Investigation by whom? Naruto pressed. I don't see any official markers or cordons. That's classified information, she replied coolly. Civilian interference is not permitted. Naruto stepped closer, deliberately pushing into her personal space, a calculated risk to see her reaction. What if I'm not exactly a civilian? Origami's hand moved subtly toward what Naruto assumed was a concealed weapon. Your biosignature is human, she stated, though her tone suggested uncertainty. But altered somehow. Behind her, the pond's surface rippled more violently, the alien landscape coming into sharp focus. A wind that couldn't be felt elsewhere ruffled the water's edges, carrying the scent of something acrid and unfamiliar. "Look out," Naruto called, shoving Origami aside as a tendril of purple energy erupted from the pond's center. The tendril whipped through the air where she had been standing, scoring the ground with a hiss of superheated earth. Parkgoers finally noticed the disturbance. Screams and shouts breaking out as people fled the area. Origami recovered instantly, pulling a compact device from her jacket that expanded into a handheld energy weapon. Unidentified dimensional breach expanding, requesting immediate backup. The pond's entire surface was now a window to the alien landscape, and more tendrils of energy rose from its depths, lashing out at random. One struck a nearby tree, reducing it to ash in seconds. "Tohka," Naruto called, dropping his transformation as he dodged another tendril. "We need to contain this." Tohka emerged from hiding, her casual clothes dissolving as her astral dress materialized around her. "Sandalphon," she called, extending her hand. Her massive sword formed in a burst of light, drawing gasps from few civilians still close enough to witness it. "Spirit," Origami hissed, swinging her weapon toward Tohka. "Not now," Naruto snapped, positioning himself between them. "We have bigger problems." As if to emphasize his point, the pond erupted completely, the dimensional breach expanding rapidly. Through it, Naruto could now clearly see the barren landscape, a world of broken earth and purple HTNING under a sky that seemed fractured like glass. "What is that place?" Tohka asked, her sword raised defensively as more tendrils lashed toward them. "No idea," Naruto replied, forming hand signs. "But we need to close this breach before it gets worse." Shadow Clone Jutsu. 10 copies of Naruto materialized, surrounding the expanding breach. Each clone began forming a Rasengan, the swirling chakra spheres glowing blue in their palms. Origami stared in evident shock. You're the unknown entity from yesterday. How did you?" Questions later, Naruto interrupted. "Unless you want this thing to swallow half the park." To her credit, Origami adapted quickly, switching her focus to the breach. "Ast reinforcements are 3 minutes out. Standard containment protocols are ineffective against dimensional anomalies of this type. Then we improvise," Naruto stated. He directed his clones to strategic positions around the breach. "Tohka, can you create a barrier with your sword? Something to limit the expansion." Tohka nodded, raising Sandalphon. The sword glowed with increasing intensity as she channeled her spirit energy into it. Sandalphon, throne. The sword transformed, expanding into a massive throne-like structure that Tohka then dismantled with a gesture, the pieces reforming into a circular barrier around the breach. The tendrils struck against it repeatedly but couldn't penetrate the spirit energy shield. "Good," Naruto called. "Keep it contained." He turned to his clones. "On my mark, synchronized Rasengan strike at the breach's edge. We need to destabilize its expansion pattern." "What exactly are you attempting?" Origami demanded, though she had positioned herself to provide covering fire against any tendrils that might break through Tohka's barrier. "Creating a counter-resonance," Naruto explained quickly. "My chakra operates on a different dimensional frequency. If we hit the breach with enough opposing energy simultaneously, it might force a collapse." "That's theoretically sound," Origami admitted reluctantly. "But the energy requirements. Let me worry about that," Naruto cut in, channeling more chakra to his clones. Each clone's Rasengan grew larger, taking on a wind-natured aspect as Naruto added his elemental affinity. The strain was considerable. His chakra still wasn't flowing normally in this world, but the urgent situation demanded nothing less than his full effort. "Ready," he called to his clones, who nodded in unison. "Tohka, on my signal, drop the barrier for just a second." "Understood," she confirmed, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort of maintaining the energy shield against the increasingly violent assault. 3, 2, 1. Now, Tohka's barrier vanished momentarily. In that instant, all 10 clones struck simultaneously, their Rasengans connecting with the breach's perimeter in perfect synchronization. The resulting explosion of chakra sent everyone flying backward, a shockwave of blue and purple energy rippling outward. Naruto hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. Through watering eyes, he saw the breach fluctuate wildly, contracting and expanding in rapid succession as his chakra disrupted its stability. "It's working," he shouted. One more push, creating additional clones despite the drain. Naruto focused the last of his available chakra into a single, massive Rasengan, not quite the size of his Rasenshuriken, but impressive nonetheless. The glowing sphere spun between his hands, wind chakra giving it a keening sound like a distant storm. "Clear the area," he ordered, charging toward the destabilized breach. Tohka and Origami both retreated, the latter pulling the few remaining civilians to safety while Tohka prepared to reinstate her barrier if needed. With a final surge of effort, Naruto thrust the Rasengan directly into the center of the fluctuating breach. Rasengan. The impact was catastrophic. Chakra met dimensional energy in an explosive reaction that momentarily turned day to night as all light seemed to be sucked into the collapsing breach. Naruto felt himself being pulled forward, the same sensation he'd experienced in the forest back home. For a terrifying moment, he thought he might be dragged through to the alien landscape. "Naruto." Tohka's voice cut through his panic. She had grabbed his jacket, anchoring him against the pull with her incredible strength. Together they watched as the breach imploded, collapsing in on itself until nothing remained but a normal pond, its surface now placid and reflecting only the ordinary sky above. Silence fell over the park, broken only by distant sirens and the sound of their heavy breathing. "That," Naruto panted, "was close." "You almost got pulled in again," Tohka said, her voice shaking slightly. "Almost went away, but I didn't, thanks to you," he replied, giving her hand a grateful squeeze. Their moment of relief was short-lived. Origami approached, her weapon still drawn though pointed at the ground. "Both of you will need to come with me for debriefing," she stated, all business despite the extraordinary events they'd just experienced. "I don't think so," Naruto replied, straightening up despite his exhaustion. "We just saved this park and probably a lot of lives. Thank you, would be more appropriate than a detention order." "Your actions, while effective, were unauthorized," Origami countered, "and revealed your identities in a public space. Protocol requires." "I know what your protocol requires," Naruto interrupted. "But we're not under AST jurisdiction. We're with Ratatosker." It was a stretch of the truth, but not entirely a lie. Origami's eyes narrowed skeptically. "Ratatosker has no operational authority over dimensional breaches," she stated. "This falls under AST and JGSDF purview. Yet we're the ones who closed it," Naruto pointed out. "While you were waiting for backup." Tension crackled between them, neither willing to back down. The standoff was brought end by the arrival of a familiar vehicle, Ratatosker's mobile command center, with Kotori emerging before it had fully stopped. What part of observation only was unclear. She demanded, storming toward them with fury evident in every step. "The breach was expanding," Naruto explained. "We had to act or risk civilian casualties. And broadcasting your abilities to the entire park in the process," Kotori snapped. "We have damage control teams scrambling to contain videos already spreading online." "Better viral videos than viral interdimensional tendrils," Naruto countered. Kotori looked ready to explode but took a deep breath instead, visibly composing herself. "We'll discuss this later," she stated firmly before turning to Origami. "AST has no jurisdiction here now. Ratatosker has classification override alpha on this incident." Quote, "On whose authority?" Origami challenged. "On the authority you know I have," Kotori replied meaningfully. "Don't make this a territorial dispute, Tobichi. Not with what we just witnessed." Something passed between the two women, an understanding beyond their apparent ages that Naruto couldn't quite decipher. After a tense moment, Origami lowered her weapon completely. "I will report this to Captain Kusakabe," she stated. "But AST will require full data sharing on the dimensional breach characteristics." "Standard protocols will be observed," Kotori agreed tersely. "Now clear the area for our containment team." Origami departed just as AST reinforcements arrived in the distance, apparently redirecting them with a communication Naruto couldn't hear. Kotori turned her attention back to Naruto and Tohka. "You two, in the vehicle, now," she ordered, pointing to the command center. "Before more civilians with smartphones show up." They complied, too drained to argue further. Inside, Rain waited with medical equipment and monitoring devices, immediately checking them for injuries and energy depletion. Significant chakra exhaustion, she noted, examining Naruto. But no permanent damage. Your system is actually showing improved stabilization after the exertion. Really? Naruto perked up at this. So using my chakra actively is helping it realign. Theoretically. Rain confirmed. Though I wouldn't recommend such extreme expenditure regularly. Your body is still adapting to this dimensional frequency. Tohka, meanwhile, had returned to her civilian clothes. Her spirit energy receding to dormant levels. The breach is gone. Completely. She asked anxiously. Readings confirm total closure, Rain assured her. Whatever was on the other side has been cut off. For now, Kotori added grimly, entering the vehicle after coordinating with her ground team. But this is the third-dimensional anomaly in 2 days. First Naruto's arrival, then 2 spirits, now this breach. Something bigger is happening. The boundaries are thinning, Naruto quoted Kurumi from the previous day. That's what she said, and she was right. The walls dimensions are breaking down somehow. But why? Tohka questioned. And what was that place? It felt wrong. Empty but not empty. Our instruments registered it as a dead dimension, Rain explained. A collapsed reality where physical laws have degraded beyond sustainability. Essentially, a dimension in the final stages of entropic death. So not somewhere we'd want to visit, Naruto summarized. Definitely not, Kotori confirmed. Exposure to such an environment would be instantly fatal to most life forms. But those energy tendrils were reaching through, Naruto pointed out. Attacking like they were sentient. Defense mechanism, perhaps, Rain suggested. Or the dimension's equivalent of an immune response to foreign entities. Kotori sighed heavily, rubbing her temples. This complicates everything. We've been dealing with spirits and spatial quakes for years, but actively hostile dimensional breaches. That's new territory, and potentially related to my arrival, Naruto added, voicing what they were all thinking. I came through a similar breach, just in the opposite direction. Which makes you our most valuable data point, Kotori confirmed. Rain, I want full spectrum analysis of Naruto's chakra signature compared to the breach energy patterns. If there's a correlation, we need to identify it. Already underway, Rain assured her. The vehicle began moving, heading back toward Shido's apartment. Naruto leaned back, the adrenaline fading to leave bone-deep weariness in its wake. Despite the exhaustion, his mind raced with implications and possibilities. I could feel it, he said quietly. When I hit the breach with my Rasengan. For a second, it was like I was connected to both worlds, this one and my home. Like I could almost reach through and touch Konoha. That suggests your chakra maintains a quantum link to your origin dimension, Rain noted with interest. A tethering effect that could potentially be utilized. You mean as a way home? Naruto asked, hope flaring briefly. Eventually, perhaps, Rain tempered. But the science is beyond our current capabilities. We'd need to understand the exact frequency of your home dimension and how to create a stable passage rather than a chaotic breach. Naruto nodded, disappointed but not surprised. He'd suspected from the beginning that returning home wouldn't be simple. Beside him, Tohka had gone unusually quiet. What's wrong? He asked, noting her troubled expression. If you find a way home, she said softly, you will leave. The question carried weight beyond its simple words. Naruto realized with a start that in the short time they'd known each other, he'd become something of an anchor for Tohka, a fellow outsider who understood her confusion and isolation. Not anytime soon, he assured her. And not without making sure you're okay first. Her relieved smile warmed something inside him. Good, because I would miss our egg-cracking lessons. The simple statement drew expected laughter from everyone in the vehicle, releasing the tension that had built during the crisis. Even Kotori cracked a smile despite her obvious frustration with their disobedience. Speaking of lessons, Naruto continued once the laughter subsided, you were amazing back there. The way you controlled Sandalphon to create that barrier, that was impressive. Tohka beamed at the praise. It felt right, like I knew how to do it without knowing I knew. Muscle memory, Rain suggested. Your conscious mind may not remember your origins, but your body and spirit energy retain the training and techniques you've mastered. So her memories could still be in there somewhere. Naruto questioned. Almost certainly, Rain confirmed. Whether they'll resurface naturally or require a catalyst is unknown. The vehicle slowed as they approached Shido's apartment building. Through the windows, Naruto could see the ordinary neighborhood continuing its daily routines, oblivious to the Dimensio. Null crisis they'd just averted or the larger implications it carried. You two are confined to the apartment until further notice, Kotori declared as they prepared to exit. And this time, I mean it. No more connection problems with the tablet. Naruto had the grace to look slightly abashed at having his deception called out. We did help, though. You did, Kotori admitted reluctantly. But he exposure risks nearly outweighed the benefits. We have protocols for a reason, Naruto. Understood, he conceded. Apartment arrest it is, at least until the next interdimensional crisis. Kotori rolled her eyes but didn't argue the point further. Shido will be back from school soon. Try not to destroy the building before he arrives. They exited the vehicle, watching as it pulled away before heading up to the apartment. Once inside, Tohka collapsed onto the sofa with a dramatic sigh. Fighting is tiring, she declared. And thinking about dimensions and breaches is also tiring. Can't argue with that, Naruto agreed. Sinking down beside her, the chakra exhaustion was hitting him harder now, his limbs heavy and mind foggy. But you were amazing out there, Tohka. A real warrior. She turned to face him, violet eyes serious. You almost disappeared into that dead place. But I didn't, he reminded her. Because you grabbed me. Good teamwork. Teamwork, she repeated, the concept clearly appealing to her. Like friends fighting together. Exactly like that. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only when Tohka spoke again, her voice thoughtful. Naruto, what is your home like? Your Konoha place? The question brought a wave of homesickness Naruto hadn't allowed himself to fully feel until now. It's beautiful, he said softly. A village surrounded by forests. Built into a mountain with the faces of our leaders carved into the stone. There are training grounds where shinobi practice, ramen stands with the best food you've ever tasted, and people who've known me my whole life. Some who hated me at first but became precious friends over time. It sounds wonderful, Tohka murmured. No wonder you want to return. It is wonderful, Naruto confirmed. But not perfect. We've had wars, lost good people, faced enemies who wanted to destroy everything we built. Just like any world, I guess. Do you think my world might be like that? Tohka asked hesitantly. Whatever world I came from. With good things and bad things. Probably, Naruto said honestly. Most places have both. The question is which outweighs the other in your memories, when they come back. Tohka considered this, then nodded slowly. I hope I remember soon. But not too soon. I want to learn more about this world first. And eggs. And how to use the shower without flooding the floor. Naruto laughed, ruffling her hair affectionately. One step at a time, princess. We've got time. The nickname slipped out unconsciously, Ratatosker's designation for her before she'd received her name. But coming from Naruto, it held no clinical detachment, only friendly teasing. Tohka blinked in surprise, then smiled. Princess, she repeated. I like when you call me that. It sounds nice, not like when the flying women say it. Before Naruto could respond, a key turned in the lock, and Shido entered, looking harried. I just heard what happened, he said without preamble. Are you both okay? We're fine, Naruto assured him. Just tired from closing an interdimensional breach to a dead universe. You know, Tuesday stuff. Shido stared for a moment, then shook his head with a rueful smile. Only you could make that sound casual. He set down his school bag and joined them in the living room. Kotori filled me in on the basics, but I want to hear it directly from you. What exactly happened? They recounted the events at the park, with Tohka enthusiastically describing their teamwork and Naruto providing the technical details about how they'd closed the breach. Shido listened attentively, his expression growing increasingly concerned. So these breaches could appear anywhere? He asked when they'd finished. Without warning. That's what we're afraid of, Naruto confirmed. And if they all connect to dead or hostile dimensions, we could have a bigger problem than spatial quakes, Shido concluded grimly. At least spirits are intelligent beings we can communicate with. These breaches sound more like natural disasters with teeth. Very sharp teeth, Tohka added seriously. That wanted to eat Naruto. The energy signatures were similar to what Rain detected in my chakra when I first arrived. Naruto explained, but corrupted somehow, like they'd been twisted out of their natural state. Could it be related to how you got here? Shido questioned. Some kind of aftereffect. Maybe, Naruto admitted, but it felt older somehow. Like whatever caused that breach had been building for a long time. The conversation was interrupted by a notification from Shido's phone. He checked it, his expression shifting to surprise. It's from Rain. She wants us all at Ratatosker headquarters tomorrow morning. They've completed the preliminary analysis of the breach energy and apparently it contains traces of spirit power. Spirit power. Tohka sat up straighter. From the dead place. That doesn't make sense. Naruto frowned. Spirits are living beings with consciousness and will. How could a dead dimension contain spirit energy? I guess we'll find out tomorrow, Shido replied, looking as troubled as Naruto felt. In the meantime, Kotori suggests we all get some rest and stay inside. Asked patrols have increased throughout the city. Great, more apartment arrest, Naruto sighed. Though after today, a quiet evening doesn't sound too bad. I'll make dinner, Shido offered. Moving toward the kitchen. You both look like you could use a good meal after all that energy expenditure. Food. Tohka perked up immediately, her concerns momentarily forgotten. Can we have more eggs? And that crunchy bread with the red sauce. Pizza toast. Shido laughed. Sure, I can make that. Naruto watched their interaction with a small smile, struck by how quickly Tohka bounced between existential concerns and childlike enthusiasm for simple pleasures. There was something refreshing about her directness, her unfiltered reactions to a world that was entirely new to her. As Shido busied himself in the kitchen and Tohka peppered him with questions about food preparation, Naruto moved to the window, gazing out at the city as twilight descended. Somewhere out there, more breaches could be forming. Kurumi was likely still watching from the shadows. Origami and the Ast were undoubtedly planning their next moves. And beyond it all, beyond this dimension, lay Konoha and everyone he'd left behind. Were they looking for him? Had Shikamaru made it back to report what happened? Did they even know he was alive? We'll figure it out, came Tohka's voice, startling him from his thoughts. She had approached silently, her expression understanding despite her own limited experience. The breaches, the way home, all of it. We are good at teamwork, remember? Naruto smiled, touched by her attempt to comfort him. Yeah, we are. And tomorrow we will learn about spirit energy in dead places, she continued confidently. After pizza toast, her straightforward prioritization made him laugh. Absolutely. First food, then interdimensional mysteries. They rejoined Shido in the kitchen, the apartment filling with the comforting smells of cooking food and casual conversation. Despite the lingering questions and looming threats, Naruto felt a sense of camaraderie forming among the three of them. A makeshift family of sorts, brought together by extraordinary circumstances.